So,
Good morning.
David, welcome and over to you.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you ever so much for coming to listen to what I'm going to talk about. I hope I can pass on some lessons that I've learnt over a particular challenge that I did a few years ago that have really had an impact on what I do from a business point of view. Um, I have read so many books about um, business culture, motivation from leaders that I admire, and I've always struggled to get them to actually apply them properly within my day-to-day work. And something happened which I did that changed that for me, and I could actually now show how some of those things which I've learned actually created quite a big achievement for me. Um, I do have a second title to what I'm going to talk about, which is what my son said to me when I agreed to do this particular challenge, which was, have you any idea what you've agreed to do? And to be brutally honest, I had no concept of what I had agreed to do. So let me explain a little bit about who I am and also the challenge that I decided to take on. Um, I've been very lucky to work in lots of different positions and companies, from setting up my own business, a company called Dexy UK that's I sold on to somebody else, but is now been going for 12 years, and the same people that I put in to run it are still there today, to working for large American corporate businesses such as Ruskin Air Management, which is part of Johnson Controls. I'm not somebody who's made millions from what I've done, or headed up well-known businesses like Coca-Cola or Heinz or anything like that. I think I'm just a normal bloke who has had an incredibly enjoyable career. And although it's been hard work, it's also been a lot of fun. And what I'm going to talk about today is something that really helped me in my career, to make it more enjoyable, but also to make it a lot more satisfying as well. So let me set the scene for you. I went to a business dinner, like a lot of us do, and there was a brilliant guest speaker there called Richard Parks, who was an ex-Welsh rugby player. And he spoke about climbing the 7 highest mountains, reaching both poles in 7 months. And I found him incredibly inspiring. And it was and at the time I was working for a charity called Red R, which was an engineering charity that when there was disasters around the world, they would send different types of engineers to help rebuild the cities and to give advice on water, lighting and things like that. And I sat there thinking about how I would love to do a challenge myself. Um, but I'm an average fitness. So it had to be something that would be really challenging for me, but I could fit it into my busy work life. Especially difficult for somebody who was really rubbish at time management, that I needed to be able to do something that would fit in really well for me, but it wouldn't affect what I was doing day to day. So here's the challenge. I started talking to some people, and after a lot of laughter and the comment, "You must be joking," when we came up with a challenge, we decided what we were going to do was we were going to cycle around the UK in the shortest period of time possible. And this meant cycling 1,600 miles in 16 days. And to give you an idea of that, that's like getting on your bike in London and cycling all the way down to Rome. But what I also didn't understand was how hilly the UK is. And what it also meant for me is that I had to climb, from a cycling point of view, up Everest, or the equivalent of up Everest, twice, which is 57,000 feet over a 16-day period. So what was the objectives I was trying to do? There was three real clear things. The first one was to take somebody who was a complete non-cyclist to hopefully being a cyclist. I also had no bike. Um, so that is a genuine, that the picture on the right hand side of me with a bike with a basket on the back is actually the bike that I had, and I had to do that to cycling 100 miles a day, and we had the challenge of doing it in 8 months. And it's no different for any strategy you have for a business. If it's to do with setting up a new business, if you've got change management, growing an already successful business, what you have to do is you have to start with what those clear objectives are that you're wanting to achieve. And then the skill is actually working out how you're actually going to do it. So for me, the first part of that was I had to get some expertise. I had not got a clue of what I was actually going to do. So I was lucky that I had a friend who was a cycling coach who would help me train and open my eyes to what needed to be done. And the first lesson that I really did learn was not to be afraid to ask for expertise, not just from the bike ride, but in everything that I do nowadays. That if I don't have the skill set for it, instead of struggling through it, I really do try to get the help from it. But you also have to have the right attitude to that. You must be prepared to be open and truly listen to what they've got to say to you. Take the advice, try it, and if it doesn't work, adapt it, and you will still learn something from it. Never go into thinking that it's not going to work for me, because if you do, it really will not. I've met a lot of people who have struggled with some aspect of the work, and most of the time it's because they don't necessarily have the skill set yet to do that part of the role. There's nothing wrong with asking for advice. 2 years ago, I was struggling with my time management because I always said yes to everything. So I asked for help, and I met somebody who actually transformed my thinking. It just shows it's never too late to actually learn new things. The next thing is to get the right equipment to do the job. I remember going into the bike shop to get my bike fitted for me. I didn't even know that that was an actual thing. And the guy asked me to put my hands on the hoods of the bike. I had absolutely no idea what he'd said to me. And just for reference, it's obviously the straight part of the handlebars. And the reason that that's really important is so you don't strain your back by stretching too far or not stretching enough. So you get the right position on the bike from that side. But I had no idea what that meant. But can I also say it doesn't mean you have to break the bank to actually to start something new if you need new equipment for it. I bought a relatively cheap metal framed bike with the plan that I would go and get a lighter aluminium bike when I was able to appreciate the difference and how I would know to get the best out of it. So again, from a work perspective, you don't have to have the best or singing or dancing thing to make you better. You can build up to it over a period of time. This brings me to the next lesson. You have to plan. The biggest thing for me was no matter how I thought about it, the thought of cycling for 16 days and cycling 100 miles, I just couldn't get my head around it. So I had to learn how to be realistic and to break this down into very small actions that I needed to do. And that's no difference in business. If you've got a strategy where you're looking to do something in 3-4 years time, you've got to break it down into really achievable goals that you can actually do. There was no way that I was going to go out next day and ride for 40, 50 miles. And well, I could have ridden for 40, 50 miles, but I wouldn't have been able to walk for 2 or 3 days. So what it meant was, if it meant I had to go into my garage, like the bottom left corner there, and sit on my bike for half an hour for the next 2 weeks, because that was what the plan said, that was what I was going to do. And as I've just mentioned, you do need to break everything down into achievable goals. Um, you need to be able to do something that is realistic and that you're able to get done tomorrow. Sorry. Oh, the big the big thing with this is also, when you are really, really busy at work, I've heard so many people say, have we done that action plan for the strategy we put in place? And they go, no, because the day to day has meant that I haven't had a chance to do it. So what you have to do is make sure you can have something that is actually achievable, and then you can actually enjoy the success of it as well. It also meant for me that all these little small milestones I'd put together, when I went to the nice sunny day, all the work seemed worthwhile, as I actually could achieve something so much better because I'd put those small little things in place. And there's nothing better than suddenly going from 0 to 50 miles in a day, and to just feel the satisfaction that you've been able to do that over a month period of time. Being stressed out over the ultimate objective is not a good place to be, because it doesn't allow you to have the success that comes from little things happening over a period of time. And if you're stressing out over it all the time, it takes away so much energy for what you're going to do. So the first time we agreed to ride for 100 miles, we decided to go from London to Chepstow. We thought we'd built up over a period of time to be able to put this into place. So we stayed in London the night before. We were very excited about the next day. We were also pretty cocky we were going to be able to do it as well. And uh, this is what Chepstow looked like when we got there the following day. It was completely pitch black. We could not have done so much wrong if we had tried. We started too late. We stopped in the wrong places. We ate the wrong food. We planned the ride badly. We ended up getting involved in a triathlon, going the wrong way around a triathlon course by mistake. We couldn't have done it worse. But apart from that, it was actually a really good day. And it was a massive learning lesson for us. You cannot be frightened to make mistakes. If you fail, it doesn't matter, as long as you're learning something from it. I now call it trial and error, because what it means is I just feel a little bit better about it, and I can be honest about it when it fails. But you need to learn, and you need to be honest with yourself about actually why that has gone wrong. Is it because you've communicated it wrongly to the other people you're doing it with? Is it something you've done wrongly? Is it something that's been prepared badly beforehand? And if you learn one or two little things from it, it can just be so beneficial, because you get back up and you do it slightly different the next time. Um, in business, sometimes that is hard, because what you find is people are very quick to criticize you. But as long as you're learning from it and you set the circumstances right in the first place, it can be a real beneficial thing. And we certainly learned more on that day doing that 100 miles than we did from anything else that we did in the training process. So we were then ready to start the bike ride. We started in in London, and uh, I was terrified. I really didn't know if I was going to do it or not, or if we were going to be able to do it. But I had created some really good habits, and these take time to put into place. And I don't think that's any difference from a business point of view as well. Is there are certain things that you need to put into place, but they need to be consistent on a regular basis. And what happens in a lot of things is you spend 2, 3 months putting it in place, getting people to do it, and then 3 months down the line, it stopped. A good example for me, one of the places I worked, the senior management were all in different parts of the world. So what we needed to do was we needed to have a weekly meeting to just communicate what was going on, and it worked great. But then people got busy and they stopped doing it, and the communication became poor. So we just needed to go back and make them a good habit so it's consistent on a regular basis. For me, on this was to do with stretching. I needed to stretch before we went on the bike ride. I needed to stretch afterwards. And it's not something that I would normally do. I would just get on and off the bike and suffer the consequences. But as a good habit, it worked really well. And then 75% of the time I did it on the bike ride, and with about 3, 4 days to go, I actually decided, oh, I didn't need to do that anymore. And oh my word, did I suffer the next day, because I'd forgotten how important that good habit was for us to do. The other thing that I learnt as well was on the bike ride, or in anything, you can't change everything at once. I made a real effort to make sure I changed my diet, which was fantastic because you actually get to eat more because you need more calories. So, highly recommend cycling for that. I also uh, looked at what I was drinking. I'm a huge coffee drinker. So I decided I would, the day before the bike ride, I decided I would stop drinking coffee. And it was an absolute wrong thing to do. What I found was that I lost energy about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And that's probably the key time of the day because you're 75 miles into a bike ride and you really do need that extra little bit of energy. And what it really did teach me was when you're in a business and you can see lots of things that are you want to change, you instantly want to change things quickly and to change things. And you look at low hanging fruit and you want to do this and this and this. And sometimes it needs to be more patient. Um, and you need to just embed one thing at a once. If you try and change everything at once, one, you can confuse people, but also it's more difficult to control it and make sure that you make it habit before you go on to the next thing. And that's one of the things I definitely learned from the bike ride. The other thing that I really learned and was really important to us was how we worked as a team. Um, the person who I'd asked to coach said he'd do the bike ride with me, which was fantastic. And also my son, who was just in his early 20s at the time, as fit as a fiddle. So it was very annoying how easy he found a lot of it. But what was really important was we did work really well as a team, and we were really honest with each other. After the first 2, 3 days, Jason, who was the person who coached me, was going too fast for me, and it had an impact on uh, my attitude to it, and it knocked my confidence that I could actually go ahead and do this. And I think what was really important was because we were a good group and we were honest, I was able to go to him and sit down and to talk about that and to work out a slightly different strategy that suited what I could actually achieve in a day compared to what him and Sam were able to do. So it was a subtle change, but you've got to be honest to say you're struggling with things or you're not happy with the way something goes. And I think that's really important in business as well. We too often will allow people to get away with something that niggles us, and it can sometimes can be blown out proportion, or it's something that it just needs to be quickly fixed, and it's to do with the communication of that. Um, what's also important to us was um, to celebrate the wins, the things that we'd put in place that we knew that we were very happy that we had achieved that goal on a day-to-day basis. If you get up in the morning and start thinking about, right, today I'm cycling from Leeds to Newcastle, it's 125 miles. It's a big ride, the biggest of the that we had through the whole journey around the UK. Um, if I thought about it in that manner, I think I would have struggled with it. But what we did was we broke it down into 2 hour sections. So we worked for 2 hours. We had the reward of having a chocolate bar at the end of 2 hours. And then we'd get on and do the next task. But we'd just sit and enjoy the fact, just for a little while, that we'd managed to achieve a part of the goal we were looking for that day. And celebrating those little things in on the bike ride, but also I found in work as well. One, it boosts everybody's confidence, and you also feel like you're moving forward as well, which can be really good. So one of the big things that I've always found very hard from a business point of view, and the ride really highlighted this to me, was looking at future things that may happen on the horizon. And this is a classic example of riding down a particular hill, looking at a big mountain to the side and going, oh my word, is that where I'm going next? And getting quite stressed out that that's going to be hard work. And what it taught me was actually that particular hill we weren't going to touch. So I was worrying about something that wasn't actually there. And I'd wasted a lot of energy thinking about that and not actually thinking about actually the tasks that I had in hand to do. And I also find that happens a lot at work when people, when you suggest something to them, they'll tell you all the reasons why it won't work or the consequences instead of just going, well, let's see how we can do it. And that's the key to it, is to be able to just say, yeah, that's is going to be difficult. However, let's break it down into little things. Let's celebrate those little things and let's go into it believing we're actually going to do it. And this is really key for the hard times. Um, don't get me wrong, it wasn't a lovely day every day, and some days it was pretty tough and hard, and some of the hills I really struggled with. But what I did learn was if you get the right support, it's huge. If you have people around you who are always saying to you, this won't work, or will say, what about this? And looking at the things that aren't actually in place at the time, or worrying about what the future is instead of saying, let's just achieve this. It can drain you. And what I was very lucky of is having two people with me who believed I could actually do it. One, they had faith in me, which is fantastic. But two, they were there at the hard times to push and to be positive and make sure things happen. And again, having that team around you that are really positive and are prepared to help you will have a massive impact on how you look at things. From when I did this, I learned so much that if I have those people around me from a work perspective, it does make it more enjoyable, but you get an awful lot more done. And I think what we also do at times is you never have everybody within a team that will want to be positive and look at things forward thinking. And we spend a lot of time trying to encourage the people who are negative to engage with them and to make them part of the team so they will support it as well. But there does come a time when, if you do that 90% of the time, what happens is the people who were positive in the first place go, do you know what? You get a lot more attention if you moan and bicker about stuff. So I'm going to be like that. So sometimes it's best to understand you are going to have a percentage of people who aren't going to believe in what you're doing, and you can try and engage with them, but also you mustn't forget the people who are on your side in the first place, and the people who want to be positive and you want to encourage you. And it's so much more enjoyable when you have those types of people around you. And when I say that, I don't mean that you want people who are going to be yes people. You want people who are going to challenge you and be honest with you. I think that is just as important. But what you must have is, by the time you've heard everybody's opinions and you've made a decision what you're going to do, you want those people to go out of the room all thinking that, right, this is what we're going to try. And that goes back to one of the lessons I mentioned before, which is about um, getting people to try things. And if it fails, it doesn't matter. Um, I often say to a lot of people within in teams now is, look, if I'm wrong, let's try it. And if it doesn't work, please take the mickey out of me and tell me that I'm wrong. But just understand, if what we do is right, I'm going to do exactly the same back, and I'm going to remind you the fact that you didn't want to do it in the first place. And if you go in with that attitude and not be frightened, it's amazing how much actually will get done instead of wishing you got things done. And I learned so much about having that right group of people around me. Um, when I started and I spoke to friends and work colleagues about what I was trying to do, um, I had a full-time job. I needed to fit this in evenings and weekends, etc. I had two kids to go around to different places. They all thought I was barking mad, and they didn't think it was possible to fit it into what I thought was quite a busy lifestyle. And what I learned from it was, you do waste a lot of time watching telly and doing stuff on the internet, and uh, I just changed what I was doing and got enjoyment out of doing something else, and I relaxed in a very different way. And if it's planned correctly and you set the right little goals over a period of time, you find that you're able to achieve so much more. But the key to it was, although these people that I worked with thought I was barking mad, they supported me, and were lucky to have an environment where they would tell me why it wasn't working. And we would look at it, we would learn from it, we would change things, we would laugh about it. And because of that encouragement from the right people around me, it was the one thing that stood out to me of how important people are, and how you communicate with them, how you behave to them. It would have been very selfish of me to just think about what I wanted to do at the time, but I still needed to create time for the other people who had things that they needed to still talk to me about, and not to be able to go, well, I haven't got time because I'm cycling. I still needed that support, and I got that back tenfold. And amount of people who helped with supporting with silly little things like, um, I had people. I was working for a company in Bridgnorth in the Midlands at the time, and they were making uh, chocolate brownies and driving up to Leeds and to Kendal in Lancashire and places to drop them off for us for a day. We didn't ask them to do that. They did it out of feeling part. They wanted to be part of it, and they wanted to be encouraging. And if you have those right people around you, it makes a huge amount of difference. So we finished um, 16 days later, um, in King's Cross in central London. We had achieved what we had dreamed about 8 months before. So we'd done the 1600 miles in 16 days. Some days were slightly shorter, and some days were slightly longer than 100 miles a day, due to the planning that Jason had put into it. And it was the most enjoyable 16 days of my life, of being able to say to when we finished that we actually had achieved it. But it only came from the lessons that I learnt, and those key lessons of being able to break everything down, make it achievable, make sure you create the right habits, have the right people around you. And from that day, everything that I've done from a business perspective has been built on those lessons that I learnt on that bike ride. And when things get difficult, I go back to that, I think about it, and I readjust what I'm doing from a business point of view to tie in with some of those things that I learnt. And has it made a difference to me? 100%. It's meant I'm less stressed, which most people suffer from because there's just too much to do. So I've become realistic about the tasks and how we do them, often making them slightly smaller so they're achievable, celebrating those things as well. And my colleagues, my family have said that I'm a lot more calm person and not stressed out because of that, which is absolutely fantastic. And I've also learned to try new things. So I'm just about in 2 months' time to start a brand new job running a UK manufacturing business. Never done that before. I'm not terrified. I'm looking forward to it. I know there's things that I don't have the skill set yet to necessarily do. But what I've learned is you go and get expertise and you find out from getting really clever people around you who can support you and you can learn from. And sometimes that's from bringing that expert in, or sometimes it's just employing people who are clever and brighter than you that you can still learn from. What I found is if being the boss doesn't mean you have to know everything. It means that you need to know where to go to get things done, but also to learn that it doesn't matter if you just say to people, "I don't know." You get more respect for that than pretending that you know about everything. Okay. So that's kind of my journey from the bike ride point of view, and I can't stress you should all go out and try it. I wouldn't necessarily recommend quite so big, but it does. It can be really powerful to see how things can be put into place from what seemed like an impossible dream to me to actually achieving something that I'm hugely proud of, and it's taught me so much about how to work in the future, and those lessons I've learned, instead of reading them and not quite sure how to apply them and would they work, I can actually show those things actually worked. It took a complete and utter novice on a bicycle to riding around the UK in that period because of those lessons that I learnt over that 8-month period. Okay. I hope that's okay. I hope that's made some sense to everybody. And if you've got any questions, please let us know.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I know to our audience, we often have kind of very innovation focused talks. And so we were slightly off piste, but David, it was a brilliant story. And as there's already comment into the chat, so many transferable lessons, I think, for all of us, from knowing your why to getting that support. And I hope that's what the Ideas UK network can do for a lot of people. Bring in that expertise, bring in that coaching, bring in that support. You're not alone. Having a great team around you, that communication and collaboration is so key to coming up with ideas and implementing those ideas, breaking things down to bite-sized chunks and celebrating the small wins. Just lesson after lesson that we can all learn from and apply to our everyday work as well. So Chris has asked you a question in the chat. It's a pretty personal one about failure. And Chris, do you want to come off mute and ask David the question yourself? And if anybody else has questions, please do pop it into chat.
Thanks so much. Thank you, David. That was fascinating. I'm interested about that when you mentioned that process, that first ride you did from London to Chepstow, how you learned so much about that. That it fascinates me that in our kind of personal lives and outside of work, is people tend to do that. They do things and will learn from them and accept it. It doesn't happen so much in the business environment as I see it. And I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts on why it doesn't happen so much in business and what we can do to develop that approach about learning from failure.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good point. People don't like to be seen to fail, particularly from a business point of view. And I think the best way I've learned to be able to change that is you need to set the scene in the first place. A lot of people will go into a business or will try new things, and will say we're doing this because of this, this, and this. And sometimes what you need to be able to do is, we'd like to try this, and to see if it's of benefit to us, and you have to follow it through. So I have um, uh, 2 points to that. I had a mentor who used to use the word experimenting in the margin, where when you have a business that is successful and doing well, you don't necessarily want to tweak the whole business. So what you do is you go and trial it in the margin first to see if it will work and to learn from it. And then if you set that as a communication to begin with, that can certainly help quite a lot to be able to do that. The other thing I found is also, and this is something that happened to me. We in a business I was working for, we were doing a lot of quotations for people, and we were struggling to get them back to people on time. So I went to have a look at the process, and the guy who was in charge of the office said to me, he said, so what we do is we put it in the book first, and then we log it onto the computer. And I said, well, hang on a minute, what do you mean you put it in the book? And he said, well, just in case the computer goes down, we want to put it in the book, and we've always done that. And says, okay. Says, so do we back up the computer? Yeah, every day. Says, so we're never going to lose the information. Says, no, I know that, but and I said, well, let's try not using the book. And I thought a week later I'd come back and I said to him, did it work? And he said, yeah, not really. He says, why not? He says, well, go through the process again. And he said, well, first of all, we write it in the book. And they went, well, hang on a minute, why are we still, I thought we agreed we weren't going to do that. And he said, oh, I wasn't quite sure if that's what you wanted us to do. So I learned that I had failed from a communication point of view of not making it really clear to that person what we were meant to do. And I went back and we redid it, and then I kept going back week in, week out to make sure that they changed the habits that they had, and slowly we became better at getting quotes out on time. But I think part of the failure is, one, we don't necessarily communicate what we're looking to do well enough, but also we just make the assumption afterwards that because we've told them once, that's now what's going to happen. And unfortunately, you have to go back to tell people 6, 7 times before something gets embedded. And it didn't matter, because it was a learning thing. And I learned I got to communicate better, which is a big part of it. And why a lot of things fail is we're not clear in the way we communicate things in the first place. Does that answer your question, I hope?
That's great. Thanks, David. We've probably got time for one more question if anyone's got anything they would like to ask. Chris.
Come
Or
back, yeah.
Emma.
Oh,
Chris, yeah.
no, Emma, go. I've spoken too much. Is it?
Emma.
I was just going to ask you, said something about, it was interesting to me, having done a lot of training in the past, is you said on the Chepstow ride, one of the mistakes is wasn't eating the right food. What was that particular mistake you'd made?
I'll just go into a bit of detail. So having stuff that gives you quick energy is hugely important. And on that very first ride, what we did was we planned to stop at a Marks and Spencer's, go into Marks and Spencer's and buy the food, because we didn't want to carry it all around with us. So we were buying things like crisps and sandwiches and other stuff that was just completely wrong. So we had to do a lot of research about energy bars and the right type of nutrition we needed that was good for the short-term bursts that we needed. And that was very different to, say, what we ate the day before, which would allow us to be able to create a longer term energy for us. But you do need some things for different parts of the day that we were looking at. And I got to have a lot of coffee supplements, which is a absolutely horrible sweet substance that for me to have that at 2 o'clock meant by 3:30 I was at my best from an energy point of view. So I wouldn't recommend them in an office because they make you go pretty hyper, but for a bike ride they're absolutely perfect. So
Thanks, David. I've got two very quick questions,
of
even though we
course,
are at time. The
no, that's
first
fine.
one was, do you still ride, having achieved your fantastic achievement, or have you never touched a bike again?
It's a very, very good question. I have to say, when I got to King's Cross, my first reaction was, I will never ride a bike ever again. I have, continued to cycle. I keep saying to my wife at times, I've been thinking about doing this, and she shuts me down pretty quickly. But no, we do bike ride, and I now go out. My son still comes with me, and my wife and daughter also come out. They just did the London bike ride 2 years ago, which was 100 miles, because they wanted to do something as well, and it was great actually using my experiences to teach them to be able to do that particular thing as well. So,
Oh, fantastic.
so
And I guess the next question was, thank you for the inspiring story from Hanan. And what is your next challenge? Because you alluded to a new challenge.
I'm not allowed. There's a couple of things I'd quite like to do, but I think I'll have to wait until I have a little bit more time to train for them. I'd love to do something cycling across America, and I'd also like to do something with the extremes of the weather, of doing something in one of the poles as well. But just at the moment, it's not the right time for me to do that. And my son, he genuinely thought I was mad. I genuinely had no idea what I was going to do. So anytime I suggest something, he just puts his hand in his hands and says, "Dad, just no." So, but I think there will be something on the horizon at some stage. So
Thank you. And on that note, we'll bring proceedings to a halt. But thank you so much, David, for
my
sharing your
pleasure.
inspiring story. It's been absolutely fantastic. Great to have you. And good luck with the new role. I hope whichever organisation you're joining, you bring them into Ideas UK too.
Yeah.
It'll be good
Thank
to
you
have
very
you as
much.
members. But thank you so much for sharing. Bye.
Thank you everybody for listening. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you at our next session as well on the 10th of June, when we'll be looking at marketing and selling your ideas.